In the year 536 AD, the sun disappeared. Not for a day. Not for a week. For 18 months, a mysterious fog covered the entire sky across Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. The sun became a faint blue disk. Temperatures dropped. Crops failed. People starved. Medieval historian John of Antioch wrote that the sun gave no more light than the moon. Scientists have called 536 AD the worst year to be alive in all of human history. And for over 1,000 years, no one knew what caused it? Welcome back to the hidden archive where history hides its secrets. Today we are going back to the darkest year in human history, 536 AD. What happened, what caused it, and what did it do to civilization? Subscribe if you're new here, a new mystery every week. Let's get into it. The mystery fog. In early 536 AD, a strange and terrifying phenomenon began. A dense mysterious fog appeared over the Mediterranean region, stretching from Europe across the Middle East and into Central Asia. Unlike normal fog, it didn't lift. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. And still the fog remained. The sun, when visible at all, appeared as a dim blue disk in the sky, as if permanently eclipsed. Historical records from the time describe a world plunged into a kind of permanent twilight. Byzantine historian Procopius wrote that the sun gave forth its light without brightness during this whole year. He described it as resembling the sun in eclipse throughout that entire year. In China, historical records describe snow falling in the middle of summer. In Peru, ice cores drilled from ancient glaciers show a dramatic cooling event beginning exactly in 536 AD. Summer temperatures in Europe dropped by up to 2.5 degrees Celsius. In some parts of Central Asia, temperatures dropped by as much as 4 degrees. For a world that depended entirely on agriculture, this was catastrophic. No sun meant no warmth. No warmth meant no crops. No crops meant no food. The consequences. The effects of the 536 AD event rippled across the entire known world. In Ireland, historical records describe crop failures beginning in 536 and lasting for years. In Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, a severe drought struck alongside the cooling. In Scandinavia, pollen records show that vast areas of farmland were simply abandoned during this period. The people either died or fled south. Tree ring data from ancient trees across the northern hemisphere tells the same story: dramatic stunted growth beginning in 536, indicating years of cold, dark conditions. But the fog and the cold were only the beginning. Between 541 and 549 AD, just a few years after the 536 event, the first great pandemic in recorded history swept through the Roman Empire and beyond. The plague of Justinian, named after the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, killed an estimated 25 to 50 million people. Some historians estimate it killed up to half the population of the Eastern Roman Empire. Historians now believe the connection is direct. The crop failures caused by the 536 event led to widespread famine and malnutrition. Weakened immune systems made populations unable to resist the plague when it arrived. The 536 event didn't just darken the sky. It may have contributed to the collapse of ancient civilizations, the end of the Roman Empire, and the beginning of what historians call the Dark Ages. The mystery. For centuries, historians knew something catastrophic had happened in 536 AD, but they couldn't explain what. The historical records were clear. The tree rings were clear. The ice cores were clear. Something had dramatically altered the climate of the entire northern hemisphere for years. But what? The fog that blocked the sun for 18 months had to have come from somewhere. It had to have been something powerful enough to affect the entire planet's climate simultaneously. Three possible causes were debated for decades. A massive volcanic eruption could inject enormous amounts of ash and sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere, blocking sunlight across the planet. This is called a volcanic winter. A large asteroid or comet impact could do similar damage, though this would typically leave physical evidence. Or perhaps multiple events, a combination of volcanic eruptions and cooling, could have compounded each other into a perfect catastrophic storm. For a long time, scientists couldn't find the answer. Then, in 2018, a glaciologist made a discovery that changed everything. The answer. In 2018, glaciologist Michael Sigel and his team were analyzing ice cores drilled from a glacier in the Swiss Alps. Ice cores are one of the most remarkable scientific tools available each year. A new layer of ice forms, trapping tiny particles from the atmosphere. By drilling deep and analyzing these layers, scientists can read the history of Earth's atmosphere going back hundreds of thousands of years. What Sigel's team found in the 536 AD layer was extraordinary. Volcanic glass particles. Microscopic fragments of volcanic rock, chemically analyzed to identify their source. The particles pointed to a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland sometime in early 536 AD. The eruption was so powerful that it injected enormous quantities of ash and sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, the upper layer of the atmosphere, where it spread across the entire northern hemisphere. Sulfur dioxide in the stratosphere reflects sunlight back into space. With enough of it, the sun's warmth simply cannot reach the Earth's surface. And the story didn't end there. Analysis of ice cores revealed that a second massive volcanic eruption struck in 540 AD and a third in 547 AD. Three catastrophic eruptions within just 11 years, each adding more ash and sulfur to an atmosphere already struggling to recover. Scientists now call this period the Late Antique Little Ice Age, a prolonged cooling event that lasted from approximately 536 to 660 AD. Over 120 years of reduced temperatures, failed harvests, and civilizational stress. The human cost. The human cost of the 536 event and its aftermath is staggering when viewed in full. The plague of Justinian killed tens of millions. The Western Roman Empire, already weakened, never fully recovered. Trade networks collapsed. Cities shrank. Population declined across Europe and the Middle East. Some historians argue that the 536 event didn't just accelerate the fall of Rome, it fundamentally reshaped human civilization. The political map of Europe as we know it today, with its different nations, languages, and cultures, was partly shaped by the migrations and power vacuums created in the aftermath of 536. In Central Asia, the disruption of agriculture contributed to the movements of nomadic peoples, including the ancestors of groups that would later reshape Eurasia entirely. In Arabia, some researchers have suggested the economic and political disruption created conditions that would eventually contribute to the rise of Islam in the 7th century, as existing empires were weakened and new power structures emerged. The fog that appeared over the Mediterranean in early 536 AD lasted only 18 months. But its consequences echoed through centuries of human history. Scientists now have a clear answer to what caused 536 AD volcanic eruptions in Iceland, followed by two more eruptions that kept the world in a prolonged cold and dark period for over a century. But the scale of what followed, the famines, the plagues, the collapse of empires, the reshaping of the world, is a reminder of how fragile human civilization really is. One volcanic eruption in an uninhabited part of Iceland, and the world changed forever. The next time a major volcanic eruption occurs anywhere on Earth, climate scientists will be watching very carefully. Because history has shown us what can happen when the sun disappears even for just 18 months. What do you think was the most devastating consequence of 536 AD? Leave your answer in the comments. Subscribe to the Hidden Archive, a new mystery, every week, where history hides its secrets. End.